Imagine someone gives away $1 billion. The newspapers call them a hero. The internet cheers. Their name is everywhere. But before you start clapping, ask a different question. Where did that billion come from in the first place? Why does one person have $1 billion while millions of people who worked just as hard have almost nothing? Charity doesn't answer that question. In fact, charity is often used to make sure you never ask it. Because the real story isn't just about giving, it's about how that wealth was made and who made it possible. We live in a world that teaches us to celebrate the rich for giving back. We throw galas, we name buildings after them, we give them awards. But nobody asks why they got to keep the other $9 billion. Nobody asks who decided that was fair. Think of it this way. You eat 95% of the meal. Then you slide the last 5% across the table. And everyone applauds you for your generosity. That's the system we celebrate, and it has a name. It's called philanthropy. And who decides what counts as generous? The rich person, not the workers, not the community, not anyone who actually needed the money. Here's something most people don't know. When the rich donate to charity, they get a tax deduction. That means the government, funded by everyone's taxes, is effectively subsidizing the donation. The public pays for part of their charity. But here's the critical part. The rich person decides where the money goes, not the government, not the public, not the people who need it. They can use that money to fund opera halls, art museums, and elite universities, places the public funds, but that mostly serve the wealthy. So the public loses twice, once because they subsidize the donation, and again because the money went to something that doesn't serve them. It is private decision-making funded by public money, and most people have no idea this is happening. This loophole is completely legal. It was written into the tax code, often by politicians who receive donations from these same wealthy individuals. This is how foundations and charitable trusts work. The wealthy set them up, run them, and decide who gets the money. These foundations can hold money for decades, grow it through investments, and never pay tax, as long as they donate a small percentage each year. This means wealth can be preserved and passed down through generations, shielded from taxation, all while looking like the most generous people in the room. The numbers confirm this. In the US, the top 1% give a lower percentage of their income to charity than the middle class. They give more in absolute numbers, but far less as a share of what they have. They give what they won't miss. The middle class gives what actually hurts. And in many foundations, the wealthy donor, or their family, sits on the board. They have a vote, often the only vote. The recipients have no say. But the real benefit isn't just the tax break, it's the reputation. Charity buys goodwill, and goodwill protects you from scrutiny. It becomes very difficult to criticize someone who just built a hospital, even if the way they built their wealth caused harm. Charity flips the narrative. Instead of asking, "How did you get so rich?" people ask, "What will you do with your wealth?" This is sometimes called reputation laundering. The worse the original behavior, the bigger the donation required to wash it off. History is full of this. Industry titans who crushed workers and destroyed competitors, then gave away libraries and museums. The donation got remembered. The damage got forgotten. The history books remember the library, not the workers. And today, social media amplifies it 10 times over. One tweet about a donation can drown out years of harmful practice. Here's the fundamental problem. Charity has existed for thousands of years, and poverty still exists. Charity is a bucket under a leaking roof. It catches the water, but it doesn't fix the hole. And the hole is getting bigger. The same economic system that creates the wealth also creates the poverty, and charity keeps the system running without fixing it. Some economists call this the safety valve effect. Charity releases just enough pressure to prevent the system from being challenged. People who might otherwise demand structural change instead feel grateful for the donation. The anger gets diffused. The system survives. There's a famous quote, "Charity is no substitute for justice. Giving food to the hungry is not the same as asking why they are hungry." Charity treats the symptoms. Justice treats the cause. And the very wealthy have much more interest in treating symptoms than causes. Charity can also create dependency. When communities rely on donors for survival, they can't easily criticize them. The powerful become untouchable. This plays out globally, too. Rich nations and billionaires fund charities in poorer countries, but set the agenda, the priorities, and the conditions. What would actually reduce inequality? Not charity. Higher taxes on the wealthy, living wages, workers owning shares of the companies they build, strong unions, collective bargaining, worker protections that don't depend on any billionaire's mood, universal healthcare, not dependent on charity, public education properly funded, housing that isn't a luxury. These are structural changes. They don't require anyone's generosity. But here's the problem. The wealthy consistently lobby against all of these things. Higher taxes, worker rights, public services. They give with one hand and take with the other. They donate to food banks while lobbying against minimum wage increases that would make food banks unnecessary. This has a historical name, noblesse oblige, the idea that the powerful have a duty to be kind to those beneath them. It's generous, but it keeps the hierarchy in place. A kind ruler is still a ruler, and a system that depends on the kindness of the rich is not a just system, it's a lucky one. Whether the poor get help shouldn't depend on whether a billionaire feels like helping today. The media also plays a role. Billionaire donors receive glowing profiles. Investigative journalism into how their wealth was made gets fewer clicks and less funding. None of this means charity's evil. It isn't. People who donate genuinely help. Food banks feed real people. Donations save real lives. But it can't be the plan. Charity cannot be the answer to structural problems. It is a plaster on a wound that needs surgery. The ask isn't to stop being grateful. The ask is to also be curious. To ask, why does this need to exist and who benefits from it staying this way? Vote for candidates who push for tax reform, support unions, demand that your representatives close the loopholes that let foundations shield wealth forever. When you see a billionaire announce a massive donation, pause. Ask what they stand to gain. Ask what system made the donation necessary. Ask who controls where the money goes. The goal is a world where charity is not needed, where no one depends on a billionaire's goodwill to survive, where the system itself takes care of people. That world is possible. Many countries are closer to it than others. It doesn't require perfection. It requires political will. Charity is good. Justice is better. And confusing the two is exactly what the system wants you to do. You don't have to wait for systemic change to start. Talk about this. Share this video. Donate to organizations that fight for policy change, not just symptoms. The next time someone gives away $1 billion and everyone starts cheering, remember this video and ask, what would it take for that billion to not be necessary? That is the right question. Not, isn't it wonderful that he gave? But why does one person have that much to give? Maybe the real heroes aren't the ones who give after accumulating power. Maybe they're the ones who fight to ensure no one has that much power in the first place.